Welcome to the Living in Salida podcast, a podcast that offers insights into the charm and reality of living, working, and playing in the small mountain town of Salida, Colorado. I'm your host, Monica McCarthy, a realtor that specializes in buying and selling in the Salida, Colorado area. In addition to helping people buy and sell property here, I love connecting with the wonderful people of our community, learning about their experiences in our town, and sharing these little slices of life in Salida with you. After speaking with numerous people on this podcast and out in the community, I've learned that one way people can make Salida their home is to uncover a need in the community and then fill it. And with me today is a group of wonderful people who did just that. Joe Lobeck, Lexi Lobeck, and Josh Lobeck. Thank you all for being here today. Joe, along with his wife Lexi and brother Josh, are the owners of Elemental 5 located in Poncha Springs. Elemental 5 is an acrobatics studio that blends ninja fitness, parkour, tumbling, and aerial arts with a bold philosophy rooted in the 5 elements. Elemental 5, or E5 as we'll refer to it today, has become a pivotal part of the community in recent years by offering numerous classes for all ages, camps, and even a spot to host birthday parties. Thank you guys for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
I'm going to start. So this is my first interview with more than one person. So I'm just going to wing it and we'll start from left to right and go. Because I like to always ask people how did you get to Salida? Tell us your origin story. So I'll start with you, Joe.
Okay. So it's kind of a longer... It's not a normal story. It's not like I just liked Salida and I showed up here. I mean, it's a little bit of what happened, but
sure.
Originally, let's see, back in 2014 or so, I was exiting the Army. So I was in the military. And when I got out, I had like no sense of direction and purpose and like idea what to do. It was sort of like a what now? And I was living in Colorado Springs at that time. And so... and I grew up in Colorado Springs mostly. So Colorado was very familiar territory. Salida had only been on the map for me as like the classic driving through to somewhere else, you know what I mean? And never going downtown, not knowing anything about it. But either way, I actually ended up deciding to, in sort of an attempt to like recalibrate into society from my time in the military, I ended up just like wandering around the state on foot, like Forrest Gump almost, you know? And like
you just decided to keep going?
I did. Yeah. I wanted to just like walk, cause it's honestly like, it's kind of comical now, but back then, I was in the infantry and my military path was not as conventional as most people's either. So, I feel like coming back to society, there was like a mental recalibration that I needed, because when you go through that training, there's not like a segue, you know what I mean? That's like clear cut, sure. You're sort of trained to think very specifically and to operate a certain way. So for me, I was out as early as I almost got in. And so it was like a whiplash effect. And I was like, now what, like, am I supposed to just go work a job, And so I just wandered and I just walked all over the state with almost any direction. Like I didn't have a purpose or a sense of like where I wanted to end up. And it was quite an adventure. I was 24, I guess, at the time, 23. And Salida was one of the places I ended up on that walk. And I remember like when I first got here, I'm going to actually tell this story in particular because I think it's relevant for later. Okay. There was a moment where I was walking down C Street on Sackett, right that corner. Okay. And Jennifer Dempsey, whom you interviewed earlier, I have a long relationship with her with the circus. She used to live there, and I walked right in front of her house, and there's a woman on stilts, and I had never like been part of the circus culture or community or anything, but I remember stopping, looking at the stilt walker and being like, that's interesting, and then I just kept walking. I just was like, it was like a pausing moment in time where I was like, and then I just kept walking. Well, years later, like I ended up leaving Salida, kept wandering. And then after like recalibrating fully and like feeling like I was kind of normalized again back into like a more normal headspace that I was before when I enlisted, I thought about all the places I visited in Colorado and realized that like Salida kind of spoke to me, or like there was a fond memories there, and it just felt weird to be in Salida in like a good way. So I ended up just coming back in 2015 in a car, and I classically like was that story of someone who just showed up in their car and was like, no place to live, no job, no nothing. I was just gonna like stay and
just figure it out.
Yeah, just figure it out. And that I did. And so I ended up meeting Jennifer Dempsey early on in my time here at Shedfest, which is the last farmers market of the year. she was setting up an aerial rig for a performance, and I was like spinning a staff or whatever at the park and just messing around. And then I wandered over to her and I said, "Do you need help setting that thing up?" So it looked heavy, and she's like, "Oh, that'd be great. Who are you?" And then we started talking. She goes, "Hey, what do you do with that stick?" I was like, "Oh, I just spin it." She goes, "You want to do that in the show?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about, lady." And she's like, "Here, put this on." She threw me this like gaudy, awful clown outfit, and I was like, "Whatever," like suitable for like an 8-year-old. And I was like, "Okay." And I put it on and I spun the staff. I did some flips, and she's like, "That was amazing! Oh my gosh!" And everyone loved it. "Can you work with kids?" I was like, "Yes, I'm very comfortable working with kids." "Great, you should show up at the Boys and Girls Club and teach kids." I was like, "Cool." I was very yes oriented at that phase of my life. I just said yes to everything, and then one thing led to another, and somehow my relationship with her just kept deepening. And then she just kept throwing stuff at me. She's kind of like a sink or swim person.
Okay.
So anyways, there's more to obviously all that, but that's kind of how I ended up here. And so I just wandered, and then I ended up in staying put, and then I ended up becoming a circus artist. So
I love that. What about Salida made you want to come back out of all of the other places in Colorado you did on your walkabout?
Honestly, it sounds ridiculous and cheesy, and it is, but like what I did is I went to all the other towns I visited, and I sat in the town, and I sat quietly, and I just mentally went, should I stay? And then I just waited for a yes or no in my mind. Like I just waited to hear like a resounding yes or no. And if it said no, I just trusted that, because when I was walking and wandering, I didn't really wander with much money or any resources or items. So like I learned to kind of move intuitively and really listen and pay attention to like what felt right. And so there were several towns I went to that it was like a no, don't stay, just keep going. I said, okay. So when I went and sat by the river here in Salida, I just sat down and I was like, should I stay? And I just remember this feeling inside was like, just stay put. Don't go anywhere. Just stay.
Wow.
Stay here. And I was like, okay. And I just trusted that and then stayed put.
That's amazing.
So, yeah.
Well, I like that. That's one of the better ones I've heard, actually. I gotta give it to you.
I need to write about it, honestly, because like it's a lot of ridiculous things happened that led up to all that.
Sure, yeah, I know you're giving us the punctuated version, but it's fascinating. I love it. I think Salida does just draw people here.
I think so. Yeah.
I love that.
Well, I also think it's good for people who are maybe like looking for something in their life, because there's the nature of like the artistic side of Salida, which I think is very welcoming to people who are open-minded and like are searching for maybe something new. I feel like that's the nature of art, and it's like it kind of, if you're yes oriented and you're kind of drawn to like a space to like redefine yourself, I think Salida can be very good for people.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, so Lexi, tell us yours. How you made your way to here.
Yeah, so fast forward to 2020. I was in Chicago. I had been living there for about a year and a half, going to circus school. And I think it was like January or February. Both of us actually met at a circus center, and we were training there. And Joe tells this story better than I do, but it's the good old reliable, like hand balancer juggling meat cute story.
I think this could be a movie. I really do think it could be. Whichever one of you feels more comfortable telling. This is relevant to how you got here.
I was in that point of my life, I was really focused on like trying to improve my hand balancing endurance, so standing on my hands as long as I could.
Okay.
And so my goal was 5 minutes. Wow. And I was just in my handstand for 5 minutes or so. Then I came down and Joe came over and he's like, "Hi, I'm Joe."
When your head is like swimming.
At the time, like both of us actually had like just ended relationships. So we weren't really like, we actually first came together as like a professional partnership, which lasted about like 3 days, and then it quickly turned to personal.
Wow. When you know, right?
Kind of, yeah. Ironically, our first date ended up being on Valentine's Day.
Oh,
weirdly enough, yeah.
This is a movie.
It really is. And we were actually dating for about 2.5 weeks or so when COVID started shutting down. And for that 2.5 weeks, half the time Joe was actually in a different country. So like we were dating for 2.5 weeks. I had seen him for about a week of that 2.5 weeks, and then COVID hit, and both of us were back in Chicago at that point, and we looked at each other and we were like, we don't want to stay in the city.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually working at like one of the like largest Whole Foods at the time, and I just like was seeing people actually fight over food and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
And like long lines of people trying to cash out like mountains of groceries and carts and stuff like that. And it was just kind of getting uncomfortable in that way. And so Joe's like, do you want to come back to Colorado with me? And I was like, you need to meet my parents first.
That's good. Traditional girl.
Yeah. So I dragged him all the way to Michigan to spend a weekend with my parents. And then after dating for about 2.5 weeks and some change, I basically followed a man to Colorado.
Sure, why not?
And I mean, there's like more nuances.
I know, yeah. It's like, the world's shutting down. Come with me. I mean, this was a good place.
I
to
mean,
be.
in the whole like considering all the circumstances, it felt like a really grounded decision at the time.
Yeah.
Stay with Tarzan.
Yeah. But yeah, actually, I never looked back really. And so and part of the reason why we wanted to stay together is because we were very determined to build a partner circus duo. And so you need to train with that person. And if we were living in two different places, that just wasn't practical.
Yeah.
And so we actually kind of put our relationship through the crucible, like the first 6 months or so, doing really intensive partner acrobatic training.
Oh, I remember that. Oh my gosh, I remember that.
Like if you, I don't know, we playfully say it's like if you need marriage therapy, maybe try partner acrobatics.
I feel like that's worse. I've talked about it was like sharing a canoe and it's like that on steroids.
Yeah.
Like, can you do that together? Wow.
Yeah. And then it's kind of, we just stayed and we decided to build a family and build a business.
Out of your home here.
Yeah. Kind of, yeah.
I love that. That's amazing. And okay, Josh, tell us.
Okay. Mine's not as like serendipitous and cool as I would say theirs is. But I can at least go back in time with how I remember how Joe was describing being in that state of like walking around. So, if we go backwards to that time, I'm across the country over in the desert. I'm in the Marine Corps at this point, and so I spent 5 years in the Corps. And Joe was kind of like, and I was going through a rough time at the beginning of the Corps just because like I was adapting still. I was pending a marriage. I was trying to do a lot of really hard stuff that most Marines probably shouldn't do right up front, move out into my own house and all that while still being like a student and everything. So I remember sitting outside with Joe and just like calling him up because I had a lot of downtime being like in a awaiting training kind of status and stuff like that. And I would spend several hours just on the phone with Joe and be like, what are you up to today? And he was like, well, I'm in Crestone. I think I'm just going to walk to, where was it? I don't know, Salida or, one of the neighboring towns. I'm like, how far is that? And I was like, geez, that's far. And I was like, where are you going to sleep? He's like, side of the road. I got a backpack and I was like, okay, dude, like, I'm going to call you tomorrow to make sure you're alive, jokingly, but also like, like, what's he up to today? So, but anyway, kind of fast forward a couple years, I'm doing military things, but I'm taking leave all the time and coming out to Salida for Christmas and summers and things like that. And town was really cool. We had a house where most of the family is kind of being put up in that Pinion Hills area of a Salida there, and I always was like, I'd love to come back and live here one day. I get out in 2018. I go through a kind of a rough divorce. That marriage didn't work out, so now I'm living in the city, and I can always think back when I was a kid, like in high school, we went to Coronado High School in Colorado Springs, Front Range, really close to Garden of the Gods, and the thought process was always like, I want to get out of the city and live up in those mountains that are gorgeous. It's great to look at them, Front Range, but like, you take trips from the city up and into the mountains, and you're like, man, and then you got to come back home, which is not there.
Yeah.
So like the dream was always to like get away from the city and live up, and closer to nature and where there's peace.
Absolutely.
So when I got out of the military, I'm in the Springs, and I'm trying to similar with Joe. When you get out of I wasn't infantry. I was a combat arms guy. I shot Stinger missile and deployed once. So you're kind of like bred to be a certain way, and like you're like, okay, how do we plug back in? I jumped right out of military into college, going through a divorce. So really trying to figure out what's going on.
That's a lot.
It was a dark time. It was rough, but going through, it spent, I would think, about 5 years in the Front Range doing like security, and I was teaching martial arts to kids and adults. Got a long background as a martial artist, and Joe and I were always dreaming and scheming like, hey, how do we build this really cool business? Like where the elements are part of the play. There's martial arts, there's acrobatics, there's all this stuff going on. Now, granted, right now E5 is all acrobatics, but we were still kind of like, okay, how do we do this? And I said, well, it starts with me getting up there probably. It's like, let's figure out the escape plan from the city and get up into the mountains. And I think 3 years ago, came out here and set up shop.
I was pregnant with Felix.
Were you? Yeah. Holy cow. Yeah. Okay.
It's about almost 3.
Well, I think it was like just before you got pregnant though, because I remember being upstairs and you guys would be like, "Hey, guess what?" And I'm like, "Oh boy, what?"
You moved here right when I got pregnant with Felix.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, we I'm have another relationship now. My fiance and I actually we're getting married in a month here, so really excited. Yeah,
that's exciting.
We're gonna go elope on top of Cottonwood Pass, so it's
as you do when you live out
here. That's right. Yeah, it's like when in Rome, or in Salida, where we want to live.
I love it.
So now, been here for the last 2.5 years. It's been nice because a lot of my speed has been very like clean cut haircut, show up on time early, like all this kind of like military isms that are like really like just sewn into my like who I am, and it's like I don't have to do that so much out here if I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I've been slowly kind of like just releasing a rope on that, like I can have facial hair if I want, if I want to, you know what I mean, and just chill, I work like a great job landscaping with Salida turf, and pays me well, and it supports me well, along with working at E5 as well.
Yeah.
And there's days where sometimes there's no work, and I'm like, all right, and I'm just gonna kick back and do some film editing because I can, and we're all set up, and I'm like, oh, here we are. Like, take a look back in time, like that young part of myself is like, dude, you're here. You're in the peaceful mountains that you asked for. Live it. And I'm like, oh man, living at a cool business where like, kids, adults, teens can come in and like learn how to move better in a really sweet community, so that's my story. Pretty simple, No,
I love that.
Just kind of connected to Joe. Joe and I have always been kind of tethered a little bit by the hip, so we're like, hey, what do we want to do with this and that?
How many years apart are you guys?
18 months, so a year and a half. Irish twins, is that what they call it?
Okay.
No?
You're like, I think technically Irish twins who have to be 12 months apart.
Oh, is that what it is? Oh, okay,
I
cool.
thought it was...
We're close.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know this. Did you look it up
I was
or something?
corrected.
Were you corrected?
Were you?
Okay, I'm not going to correct you then.
Hold
Because I was like, Joe and Josh
assumptions.
are Irish twins, and someone is like,
Someone hit
no,
you with a
they're
whip.
not.
It said no. Are they 12 months?
It's like, regardless, their mom definitely got pregnant, like 2 under 2. Like seriously,
That's tough.
We still play those roles pretty well though. Joe and I have been, pretty tight as brothers, and just there's an older and younger brother like dynamic, but not by much, so
it's like more like a partnership.
Exactly.
So I guess tell us a little bit. So you've had, I guess, early on talks of starting a business. So how did this one here, the Elemental 5 that we've been talking about, come to fruition?
Oh well, if you want to take some. I was just talking, bro.
So
grab the Lexi.
Let's see here. So Josh and I grew up as martial artists primarily, and like our discipline and like what we really committed ourselves to. That was what we really focused in on at a young age, and then we got later into acrobatics in our teens, and so like when parkour started to become a thing in the U.S., we were like trying to flip off like those green electrical boxes outside that you probably shouldn't play on. Like that's like our old school style of practice. But regardless, the martial arts we took influenced us in various ways, and one of the ways was we did learn. They were all Japanese grounded martial arts, and so. In the martial art like world, depending on the school you go to, you usually get a lot of influence onto like the culture from where it came from and the philosophical history and sometimes the religions that are tied to that and so on and so forth. And the elements that we present through E5 were part of the sort of philosophical grounding of the martial arts we trained through. And you can find those elemental themes like embedded in like certain practices of Buddhism and whatnot. So this is not like something we just made up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So anyways, that was always with us, like mentally through our training. But then over time, when I was in college, I had studied, before I went in the military, I had studied sports conditioning and health sciences and training like this. And so at our school, one of the things I wanted to offer was like, I wanted to create a better fitness program for the students who went there. And so I was like, I wonder if I can take like the elements and blend it with like fitness, you know what I mean? And I just like had that random idea. And so I did entertain that for a while since I was like, I guess I've had the idea since I was about 17 or so. And so it's been with me for half my life.
A long time idea. And it's like morphed and like, Joe and I will put it in a blender, see how it tastes, be like, needs more strawberries, so like, that doesn't taste good. Take that out, start over,
So how it kind of came to be in Salida was I used to work on the Cog Railway in Colorado Springs. It's like this train that goes from the bottom of Pikes Peak to the top.
Okay.
And I was on this labor crew, and one day I was telling my buddy who I worked with about this idea, just like the elements and stuff, and he thought it was really cool. And I didn't know this, but he was a graphic designer, and he had done this like on his side, like as a side hustle. And then the next morning after our conversation, we got to work, and he showed me like a professional portfolio of the logo that we have at our gym right now. That like he like just put it in my hands. He's like, "What do you think of that?" He's like, "That came to my mind when you were talking about it." I was like, "That's so sick, dude." I was like, "Cool, man." And so I just held on to it for a long time, and I was like,
when was this?
This would have been when I was probably 22 or 23.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah, so over 10 years ago.
Glimpse of your future. Okay.
Very much. Yeah, I like a lot of things in my life happen like that. I think I would like to suggest it happens in everyone's lives, but it's like life gives you little samples sometimes. If you're paying attention, it's like for better or for worse. You know what I mean? But anyways, for me, it's usually been for better. But
and you're paying attention.
Yeah, it's the best we can, right? Yeah. And so, anyways, he puts that in my hands. I'm like, that's really cool. And in that moment, I felt like life, God, nature, whatever people want to call it, kind of like there was like this moment of like, would you take care of this, whatever this is? Like, this is yours to take care of. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay. So I held on to it for years, and I didn't like lean into it hard. I kind of entertained it with different programs throughout the years with different people, different times. When I joined the circus life, it kind of took a back shelf it collected dust for a while. But then later on, whenever COVID happened and Lex and I got together, our circus life was like kind of developing, but at the same time, the industry had flatlined, and so it wasn't like a robust way to go about the world, It's like, sure. And so things started to shift. And then when we got married and had a kid, I think for me that was the turning point. I remember when our son Felix was born, there was this moment where I was like, oh, like this is like now I'm gonna do the thing I'm gonna do or not.
Yeah, and I think similar for me.
Go ahead.
Yeah, similar for me too. I think when Felix was born, I don't know if you had this experience with having Owen, but like when you actually have the baby Earthside in your arms, like everything, like all of what you thought was important and is actually not, just like totally flat lines. And it's way easier to say no to the things that you want to do and choose the things that you actually do. And so priorities shift and like I felt like when we had Felix, our life as we knew it kind of like crumbled. Like we almost like started from ground zero. But in a really brilliant way for us to be able to rebuild it in a way that we wanted to.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I would say that's very accurate. And I think for me, it was like when he was born, well, on the practical side, there's sort of like an ethereal like way to view it. Like there's this sort of mystical thing that happens when you have a kid. But on the practical side of things, Lexi and I are circus artists, and I'm like, I knew some people who had kids and they were circus artists and they went around the world and did that stuff with their infant. But I'm like, I don't know. It just didn't speak to me. I was like, I don't want to try that because I know we could do it, but it just felt like wrong. It felt like it was pushing a boulder uphill. And so that kind of like just forced me to think like, if I'm going to stay here, I've worked for enough people, I've disappointed enough employers in this town to be like, I don't want to keep doing that. You know what I mean? So like, I need to just build out what I want to build out deep down right now, like now. And it's not like the timing's right. I had no idea where we were going to do this. It's not like Salida Realty, as you know, and commercial realty is like available by leaps and bounds. Prevalent. So I was like, I have no idea how to do this, And so I was like, but screw it. I'm just going to like put my mind to it. I'm going to really dial in and I'm going to focus and that'll be that. And then it's like, and then the things just lined up somehow. So I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if that's like skill or if that's luck or a little bit of both, and but the gym came out from that, and and I knew that the concept that we held on to, the Elemental 5 like theme, I knew our background working with kids, and Josh was in the picture. The timing was right. I was like, we're really good coaches. We know how to work with kids. I know Salida needs this because I've worked with kids a long time here, and I know the market pretty well, and I know the families, and I have a good sense. I had my finger on the pulse here,
Yeah.
And so I was like, if I do this, it's a risk, but it's not that much of a risk. I was like, I got this if we can figure it out. And so
It's also worth it. It's a worthy risk. You know?
Yeah, well, and
you gotta try,
because
right?
a lot of our programming too is mentorship based, and like while I love Salida for its outdoor recreation, the one thing that I personally feel like a lot of the value I take from my life directly stems from the mentorship that I had when I was young. Like I have very clear memories and experiences from people who were adults that properly guided Josh and I from a young age, and I'm like also formed me deeply, as like the person I'm proud to be today. Yeah. And so I was like, I want to be that role for as many other kids as I can. And like, I want to be in that role because I know how important and valuable it can be. That's and life changing, not in the moment, but in 10 years, a lot of these kids will remember this place in a profound way. And so I just know that to be the case. So
boy, some of the kids we're building too right now, we're seeing some serious potential and strength coming out.
And I mean, kind of dive into the whole purpose of this is, we're using acrobatics as like the medium, but the whole purpose is to create resilient and open humans, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why we're doing it.
Yeah. So it's just it's not just they're going and having a good time and then that's it, but it's a lasting impact on their lives.
Absolutely.
And their values.
It's like superhero love ninjas. That's what we're building.
That was actually the working title.
Well, I have a really close friend from Denver, and actually he's just like, I can't explain Brandon Kelly very well, but like he's like, that's actually directly from him. He's like, dude, he's like, Joe, he's like, you're building a legion of superhero love ninjas, man. He's like all excited. I was like, yes, dude, that is exactly what we're doing. So
that's funny. The ninja part, I wanted to just give this little anecdote because my son, who's 5.5, goes there and loves it, and he's always asking you like, how do I become a ninja? How are you a ninja?
Still asking the question. Yeah.
So how do you become a ninja, Joe?
Dude, let's talk about that. So
what are ninjas?
Well, actually, this is really. Oh, Alexis, hold on.
No, I'm
so there's this really cool. This is the one thing that's fun to know as a coach and as someone who's Josh and I are like actually trained like. I'm going to do quote unquote ninjutsu, which is like, I don't want to go into depth about what that all is. But the point is this, the word nin in Japanese means like Japanese language has a deeper relationship to words than English. Oftentimes like the words have, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but like the word nin is broken down into two other subwords that are blade or yaiba and kokoro, which is like the spirit of your heart, Okay. And so the word nin basically implies this idea of deep, profound perseverance. And so like ja is a derivative of the word jin in Japanese, which means person. So ninja is like a person who endures or who perseveres under all conditions. Right.
And then if you go further with it, like stealth, if we're talking warfare now, we're talking martial arts, stealth being like the hardest thing to do in like a guerrilla warfare setting. It's going to require absolute like impossible perseverance, like to try and get through and be effective at whatever mission, so it's this ultimate idea.
Ready? I'm gonna do the philosophical plug here. All right, so this is like something that we don't really disclose like at the gym, because the kids are like, their interest is the flip and the plane, we know that, but like what drives us as coaches and some of the, like what I would call the spirit of the company. Why did we call the company Elemental 5, beyond the fact that like this is a philosophical concept that we were introduced to, is that if you think about like the word ninja from the standpoint of just like kids love ninjas, you know what I mean? And so there's that. So there's this marketing ploy, right? But nonetheless, like the deeper aspect of this is like, I thought about this a lot when I was building out like the programming. I was like, what really endures? Like what lasts, like if you want something to last, what's the art here? Like, how do you build something that's designed to be resilient? And we found that like, if you study the complexity of nature and how it's related to each other, and you actually learn from nature as like a guide, that is the greatest teacher that teaches you the ethos of nin. You know what I mean? So the Elemental 5 concept has like compartmentalized like aspects to it, both physically but also psychologically. So like the elements of earth, water, fire, air, and void,
if you wanted it.
Yeah. Can speak to the human spirit, and not just like in a way that's beyond dogma and things like that, because it's universal. We all know the relationship to fire and water in various ways and these elements, but if you have a nuanced relationship to them through training your body in a disciplined and conscious way, then you can integrate the elemental framework into your body and your mind that allows you to access like your ambitions and your dreams, and like helps you navigate life artistically and masterfully. And that's sort of like what undergirds like the company's ethos and vision.
Yeah.
And even with that, you'd say, you're asking, what is a ninja able to do? It's like, well, in a way, able to live your life very purposefully and like almost like majestically, like mysteriously, like, oh, how are all these things coming together? How did you make all that happen? How did you make all this work? And it's like, what looks like, maybe luck and, a little bit of skill might actually be like, there's what your ninja is. It's this person that actually knows how to navigate very effectively and make their goals, dreams, missions, whatever it is, work, because they're in tune both with themselves and the outer world,
Absolutely.
So it's kind of, if we're diving down this deep rabbit hole of philosophical, like, how do I become a ninja? We're like, careful muttering those words. Like, I'll train you, but it is not an easy one.
It's like when you're 5, how do you become a ninja? You do backflips. Yeah. And then when you're 10, you know what I mean? It's like whatever. And then when you're 20, it's like, so the evolution is there. But
ninjas in our 30s, ninjas in our 60s will be interesting. Yeah. It's like, so.
Right.
Proven endurance.
It just keeps evolving.
Yeah.
Okay.
It does. Yeah.
You're once a ninja, always a ninja?
I think so. Yeah.
I don't have the tattoo on my body, but it's definitely in the heart,
Oh, there you go. Well, you got to change that probably.
Yeah, right, probably.
Well, awesome. So I think, you guys obviously just bring so much to the community. I know we didn't talk too much about like all of the different classes you do, but I know you have a number of classes from pretty much, is it
like as early as like walking?
As early as walking through, like you do adults too, right?
We do. Lexi, you can go ahead and
I'm the calendar. I'm the walking calendar.
You know all the things. It's a robust calendar, so check out the website for sure.
Yeah. So we offer classes, open gyms mainly for ages like 0 to 2, basically. I mean, the kids who are like just starting to learn how to walk, we have like offer open gyms for them. And then for the preschool level, ages 3 to 5, we have our mini ninja program. And that's an actual guided class in which we have a teacher guiding them through obstacle courses, working on gross motor skills and some specific acrobatic capabilities and like inverting and whatnot. And then we move into our youth programs, and we have a few different ones. So we have NinFit Youth, which is ages 5 to 12. And that's the combination of parkour, acrobatics, and trampoline.
Okay.
In like all fused into 1 hour. So they basically get to utilize every aspect of the gym in that class. And then we initially started with TNT, but now we are calling it TX3. TNT initially stands for tumbling and trampoline, but we added another T, so it stands for tumbling, trampoline, and tricking. And tricking is basically tumbling, but kind of sideways, like on a diagonal.
Okay.
Martial art infused acrobatic system, slanting axes and doing strange flips that look really cool.
So in a TX3 program, kids would start learning the foundations of tricking as well as basic strict tumbling skills.
Yeah.
And then we also offer aerial silks. And so kids learn how to fly and in the air, like in silks, and wrap themselves in knots and that kind of thing. And when we initially opened, we did have adult classes, but I think we kind of shifted gears and focused our target more so on youth. Okay. And we still offer an adult time, but it's more relaxed. It's more of like an open gym / like if an adult comes at this time and they have a specific goal, we're happy to help them get to that goal, but it's kind of like tailored to what they are looking for, if that makes sense. Yeah. And our main focus, like I said, our main target audience is youth right now, but once we kind of hone in on that and really feel like we have that locked into place, we are looking to expand a little bit deeper into like teen and youth culture.
Okay.
But I think also part of building that teen culture is building the youth, so we want, like, we get them hooked early and then they'll stay.
Yeah. And it's such a great outlet. Well, I love what you guys are doing for the community. I know you have so much to offer, and especially for the youth, and it's wonderful. I know my son goes there quite a bit, and he's always so happy afterwards. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for listening. Again, I'm Monica McCarthy, a realtor who specializes in Salida and surrounding areas. If you're interested in connecting with me, whether it's to help you buy or sell a home here or about being on this podcast this season, all of my contact info is in the show notes. And if you like this podcast, please share it with a friend. You can learn more about Salida, Colorado and the real estate market here on my YouTube channel, Living in Salida, Colorado. Thank you for listening, and take care.